People are fragile creatures. Just ask the man crushed in his own bed when a cow fell through the roof in 2013. But can a stock save your life? Can investing in the right stock save you from some of the weirdest ways people have met their end? Well, it can if it reminds you not to make the same mistake they made. Here are 9 stocks I'm watching, and the 9 times they might just save your life. First up, the Mosaic Company, ticker MOS, down 33% from its high just 4 months ago, and a great play on the future of agriculture. Mosaic is a leader in crop nutrients, phosphate, and potash, and ramping up its low-cost potash fields to really drive that profitability. You see, fertilizers are a commodity product, so the price doesn't leave much room for differentiation, so management has to be laser focused on those costs and efficiency. The world did reach 8 billion people this year, though, and that means increasing food demand that's going to drive demand for fertilizers, trying to get extra crop yield out of those plants. This market is expected to climb steadily to $271 billion by 2030, about 3% annualized growth, but it's locked in by that continual increase in food demand. Mosaic trades for just 5 times on a price-to-earnings basis, versus an average 8 times for stocks in that basic materials sector, and the company has traded as high as 8.3 times itself just this last year. The company regularly posts returns on equity and profitability higher than its rivals, peers like Nutrien as well as CF Industries. So here you're not only getting a good growth story in an industry, but also the best-of-breed stock trading at a steep discount. One plant that doesn't need any help growing from fertilizers is the giant saguaro cactus. These skyscrapers of the desert can grow as tall as 78 feet with spikes as long as 3 inches. Mother Nature, it seems, has a weapon in the war for survival because these plants carry a darker side. In 2013, David Grundman drove out into the desert 2 miles north of Arizona 74, just west of Lake Pleasant. He took his shotgun and 2 rifles for target practice, aiming at the giant saguaros until he went up against one in a bad mood. Blasting the 26-foot cactus with everything he had, Grundman was instantly crushed and impaled when the monster toppled over onto him. Now, all you out there in the Bowtie Nation have heard me talk about Freeport-McMoRan, ticker FCX. Despite lower metals prices recently, Freeport is doing everything right, from increased production to higher operating margins and even decreasing its debt load. Copper and some of the industrial metals the company mines will see a sell-off in a recession, but we could be seeing a serious shortage of copper and these higher prices in the near future. Electric vehicles alone use more than 3 times the amount of copper compared to traditional cars. Copper is also a major component of renewable energy delivery along with construction. Recently, the news in copper has been about a startup called Jetty Resources that has found a way to potentially unlock millions of tons of wasted copper through a new process. Basically, in the past, miners have had to sit on millions of tons of a special type of ore because extracting the copper from it was just unprofitable. Through a developed catalyst that can now unlock that copper, though trapped in this ore, Jetty and copper miners could see a surge in production to meet that expected demand. Now, without being a mining analyst here, it just means that this could be a win-win for copper miners. If we do see that supply shortage on the transition to electrification, the price of copper could double by 2025 for huge profits to the miners. On the other hand, if that process unlocks all this wasted copper resources, supply will increase efficiently and prices might not go up, but production will boom and the miners will still make a lot of money. Shares of FCX are down 30% from the commodities boom earlier this year and are now trading at just 14 times on a price-to-earnings basis. Now that's above the low we saw last year, but still well under valuations of 17 times for Southern Copper, which I also like on that longer-term copper demand story. Freeport has a much stronger balance sheet too, though, with only about 40% debt to equity versus SCCO with a debt of 90% its equity. While you're waiting for your shares of mining stocks to explode higher, do yourself a favor and leave the dynamite to the miners. It's advice 47-year-old Paul Stiller could have used in 1996. Bored and drunk with his wife in their New Jersey home, they naturally decided to go for a drive at 2 a.m. While at it, they decided to bring with them a couple of sticks of dynamite, as one does when you're bored and drunk driving. Reliving those golden years of July 4th fireworks and bottle rockets, the couple decided to light the dynamite and throw it out the window. Except they failed to notice the window was still up. Paul was killed instantly, and his wife left in critical condition. We're just getting started on our list of stocks and the weirdest ways people have bit the big one, but first I've got to send that special shout out to all you out there in the nation. Thank you for spending a part of your day to be here. If you're not part of the community yet, just click that little red subscribe button. It's free and you'll never miss an episode. Next on our stocks list is one of my favorite safety stocks, shares of Anheuser-Busch InBev, ticker BUD. The company is the world's largest brewer and controls 5 of the top 10 beer brands by sales. In what could signal a turnaround, shares jumped 11% on the third quarter earnings when Anheuser reported sales of $14 billion for 11% growth over the last year. Both volume and pricing were very strong here, especially across the company's premium portfolio of Bud, Corona, and Stella. I highlighted in a recent video why a recession is coming for 2023 and why that could make for continued pain in stocks. Inflation is coming down, but not nearly as fast as expected, and right now, the best thing you can do is have some of these safety stocks to hold your money while you wait for that next bull market. People are going to drink beer in a recession. Hell, they probably drink more beer in a recession, and shares of Bud are not only going to protect your money, but are going to pay you a dividend while you wait. While you're enjoying a cold one and watching your shares of Bud go higher, spill a few drops for the courageous brewers in that hazardous occupation. Because in 1814, a 22-foot-high wooden fermentation tank held with massive iron rings was installed at the Horseshoe Brewery in London. The tank alone was equivalent to 3,500 barrels of ale, and all told, the brewery held 610,000 liters of suds. Now that's over 161,000 gallons to those of us across the pond. When one of the massive iron rings snapped, it caused all the others to burst and set off a chain reaction of ruptures, resulting in a 500,000-liter flood rushing into the streets. The 15-foot-high beer tsunami left a path of destruction, killing 8 people. Alcohol poisoning claimed another 9 in the following days from people drinking up the free ocean of brew. Shares of Beyond Meat, ticker BYND, now trade for an 81% discount to the 2019 IPO price and a fraction of the stock's high. The global meat category is a $1.4 trillion market with $270 billion in U.S. sales alone. The meat substitute market was estimated at just $6 billion this year, less than 0.5% of that global category, but is expected to more than double to $12 billion by 2029. And in this, Beyond Meat has a commanding lead with 23% market share, more than 5% above the next largest competitor, and triple anyone else in the space. But what happened? Investors have all but forgotten that this was once the growth stock darling, set to change our world and make everyone rich. And while I wouldn't have touched this stock with a pair of 10-foot barbecue tongs at that 20 times price to sales it hit back in 2019, this stock is now trading for just 1.8 times on that price to sales basis. And growth stock or not, it's still changing the world in which we live. Nation, if you learn one thing from investing over the last couple of years, if you want stocks that will make you rich, you have to invest at least some of your money in these thrown-away growth stocks. The stocks like Teladoc Health, like SoFi Technologies that we've talked about on the channel here, stocks that, while investors have all but forgotten about them, they are still growth companies leading in a growth industry. That trend to fake meat could have saved one unlucky Brazilian in 2013. 45-year-old Reo Maria de Souza was sleeping next to his wife when a 3,000-pound cow fell through the roof, crushing him in his bed. The cow had climbed up on the roof from the hill behind. Asked by journalists later, the man's mother was quoted saying, "I didn't bring my son up to be killed by a falling cow." But here you've got to ask yourself, was this as accidental as it appears? Days later, the cow and the man's wife were seen together, both of which had survived. We'll get back to our list of stocks to buy, but first, I want to personally invite you to get the Weekly Bowtie, our free weekly newsletter with all the stock market news, strategies, and trends you need to know. Each week before the market opens, I'll show you what I'm watching and the stocks that could highlight the week. It's all totally free, just something I like to do for all you out there in the community, so look for that sign-up link below. While you're protecting some of your money in safety stocks, it's also a good idea to look for those rebound plays, and one of my favorites is the Walt Disney Company, ticker DIS. We're seeing a lot of other companies try to tack together some kind of content and distribution empires, from AT&T to Paramount and Warner Brothers, but only Disney has been able to unlock that secret. While these other companies have struggled to build a business of both producing the shows plus the distribution through streaming, Disney is making it work. Between the theme parks, media distribution with Disney Plus and Hulu, studio content with Marvel, Lucasfilm, Pixar, and 20th Century Fox, and its cable distribution with ABC, ESPN, and FX, Disney has that synergy of content and distribution that no one else has been able to perfect. The company was able to reach 130 million subscribers on its streaming service 3 years ahead of schedule. It took Netflix more than a decade to reach that. And Disney is now estimating as many as 260 million plus subscribers by 2024. And here, where I think Disney has that competitive advantage here over those other streaming providers is because of that studio business and the other content. You see, one of the biggest worries I have about streaming stocks right now is it is getting just ridiculously expensive to produce all that content, all the shows and all the movies. We're seeing it come through in lower profitability on Discovery, Paramount, and even Netflix. But Disney, with the movie and cable studios, it's just able to continuously pump out those new shows that people want to see. Now, despite all this, nothing could save the shares from that massive sell-off in streaming stocks this year. Disney is down 51% from its high in March of last year. But the stock is now trading for just 2.1 times sales. That's the lowest it's been since 2012, and Bob Iger has recently came back as CEO to turn the company around. Now, I'm not saying shares get anywhere near back to that $180 anytime soon, but this is still a company growing profits by 17% a year, with the theme park attendance back up and streaming growth still on the table. The average analyst target is for 26% upside to $122 a share just over the next year, but I think this one surprises higher over the next 5 years. Now, I'm going with Disney here, not just because I'm a massive Star Wars and Marvel fan, but also the House of Mouse seems to be a little bit more of the action and cartoon entertainment, different from the comedic movies you might see on Netflix. Because laughter kills. At least that was the case in 1975, when Alex Mitchell of King's Lynn in England died after watching an episode of The Goodies. Mitchell laughed continuously for 25 minutes until he fell dead on the sofa from heart failure. Oddly enough, his widow would later write to the show thanking them for making his last moments pleasant ones. Brown-Forman, ticker BF, is near and dear to my heart as the maker of Jack Daniel's whiskeys, but the company is more than just that, with 40 brands sold in 170 countries. Now, this is another safety stock, up 8% so far this year versus that 15% drop in the overall market. It seems, recession or not, the only way you're going to get my Jack Daniels from me is when you can pry it from my cold, dead hands. In all seriousness, though, the company's premium brand gives it pricing power to help fight inflation. Sales of Jack Daniels jumped 21% in the first quarter, with its Woodford Reserve label reporting 39% sales growth. The company's ability to raise prices without hurting those sales meant it not only did revenue increase, but profitability jumped nearly 1% from last year. Now, shares aren't cheap here like a lot of the others on the list, with the stock trading at 8.6 times sales. That's right around the 5-year average, but I still like this one for that history of returns. And, well, if I'm going to be drinking it, I might as well own a part of the company. Jasper Jack Daniel ran away from home at 17 and moved in with Reverend Dan Call to help the minister with his whiskey business, which is why this stuff is so heavenly. To keep his church flock happy, the minister sold the whiskey business to Jack for just $25. Early one morning in 1911, though, unable to remember the combination to a cash iron safe in his office, Jack kicked the strongbox in a fit of rage, hitting it so hard he broke his toe. The injury developed a nasty infection that required his foot to be amputated, but gangrene had already spread, and he lost his left leg shortly after that. In October of that year, at the age of 61, he died of complications related to the infection. Ironically, had he soaked his toe in his own whiskey, it might have disinfected it and saved his life. Now, if that didn't do it, you're going to laugh at this next stock, Meta Platforms, ticker META, but its investors could have the last laugh. And hey, go ahead, laugh all you want, but the numbers don't lie. Between Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger, the company has a reach that is unrivaled by any other platform. Altogether, Meta reports over 3 billion users, nearly half the number of people on Earth, and is far beyond any social media competitor. And yes, shares have plunged, down 71% from August of last year. The Apple privacy changes was like a jab that rang Zuckerberg's bell. And then recession fears brought a drop in ad spending that was the right hook out of nowhere. But these are both temporary problems. Facebook will find a way around that targeting problem in ads, and ad spending will eventually boom with the economy. Nevertheless, people are for the first time asking those existential questions about the platform, whether it can survive. But really, are you using Facebook any less than you used to? I know I'm not, and even if there are a few that move to other platforms, 3 billion monthly users is a market position the company can leverage to transform itself out of any of these challenges. No other social media company has the breadth of platforms like Meta, including Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and its Messenger app. Now, sales are expected to be flat this year, but then to post 11% annual growth to $163 billion over the next 3 years. Profits are expected to grow even faster than that, at 19% annually to $16.86 a share through 2025. And now, while the metaverse is just the punchline to a bad joke right now, is there any doubt we're heading to that kind of immersive online experience? And when we do, Meta is going to be there to dominate it, just like in social. Besides that market dominance, the growth that I think is underestimating what the company can actually do, these shares here are trading for just 2.5 times sales, the lowest in the company's history, and a 65% discount to that 5-year average. Why do I like Meta for that rebound and the big returns? Because its Oculus Quest headset controls 90% of the VR market, and that's the direction of gaming. And gaming is deathly addictive. Case in point, 28-year-old Lee Sung-sup, an industrial boiler repairman in the city of Daegu, South Korea. Lee's family recognized his gaming addiction. In fact, it was so strong that he lost his job and his girlfriend for love of gaming just 6 weeks before his death. It started on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2005. Lee walked into an internet cafe to play StarCraft, one of his favorite games. Nearly 50 hours later, when he didn't return home by Friday, his mother asked his friends for help. They tracked Lee to the cafe where he said he would return home after this current game, only to die moments later of dehydration and heart failure. We've still got 2 more stocks to watch, along with the Greek politician smothered by his own popularity. But you know we love us some dividend stocks here on Let's Talk Money. That's why I put together a special dividend portfolio that puts cash in your pocket every single day. 58 dividend stocks that will cash flow every day to help you pay the bills. I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description below and at the end of this video, so check that out. Shrugging off the 30% drop in shares of other retailers this year is Tapestry Inc., ticker TPR, and its strong 3.3% dividend yield. Tapestry owns the iconic Kate Spade, Stuart Weitzman, and Coach brands, with 52% of its sales from handbags and 62% from the North American market. And the pace of e-commerce growth here has been phenomenal. After a 3-fold increase in online sales last year, the company was able to build onto it with 55% growth in the most recent quarter, adding another 600,000 new customers in North America alone. And I like Tapestry for 2 reasons here. First is that those luxury retailers have held up much better than the off-brand and discount stores. And strong brands like Tapestry have just been able to raise their prices to offset inflation and keep earnings higher. Luxury retailers also tend to get more of their sales online rather than those in-store purchases, which will not only help protect profitability, but is going to save them from the mad scramble for workers that's hitting the industry this year. For example, Tapestry was able to drive that 3-fold increase in online sales last year, helping to increase gross profitability to 70%, almost 3 times the 27% gross profit margin at Target and 36% at the Gap. Now, that's not to say that those luxury retailers won't also face inflation and worker demand issues, but those higher margins on their products, so that the higher sales price means they're likely to pay their workers more and could see less pain. That retailer stock would have been appreciated by Draco, the first recorded legislator of Athens in 7th century BC. Draco replaced the former system of oral laws and blood feus with his draconian constitution, one of the first written codes of law. It was a milestone for democracy, though the laws ended up being surprisingly harsh, which is actually why now when something is exceedingly brutal, we call it draconian. A 10th century encyclopedia chronicles Draco's death. Folklore suggests, despite the harshness of those laws, he was so loved that while at the theater one day and in a sign of respect, the citizens threw so many hats and cloaks at him that he suffocated and was buried where he fell. This next one is probably the riskiest of the group. Shares of WW International, ticker WW, the old Weight Watchers brand. Shares here have been on a crash diet since 2018, and the company is now a penny stock at a market cap of just $272 million, with shares under $5 each. The stock did get a boost last month with a vote of confidence when the CEO bought 63,000 shares, and I like it for a turnaround play as well. Weight Watchers is transitioning to a more full-service health company, adding functionalities like sleep tracking, meditation, social media, and fitness to its mobile app. It's also in the middle of a turnaround, closing half of its U.S. studio locations and shifting to kind of a digital-first model to cut the expenses. The company has been hemorrhaging subscribers, though, and the 4th quarter is usually the worst, but a recent trend leads me to believe growth may return. And while online shopping was only up 2.3% on Black Friday this year, sales for exercise equipment surged 218% from the previous year. People are once again worried about their weight after years of packing on those pandemic pounds, and That's going to mean more subscribers for Weight Watchers. And this is still a strong cash flow business, generating $157 million in operational cash last year and $120 million in free cash flow. The company has almost $190 million in balance sheet cash, so plenty of funding to see it through this transition, and earnings are expected up 20% over the next couple of years as it trims those expenses. We all know that eating too much can be harmful to your health. It's part of the draw to programs like Weight Watchers, but one day in particular is deadly for stuffing your face. Shrove Tuesday is the day before Ash Wednesday. Also known as Fat Tuesday, it's the day for indulging in everything you plan to forsake through Lent. Swedish King Frederick, ruling between 1751 to 1771, should be remembered for his legacy of a 20-year reign, witnessing an extended peace, an expansion of civil rights, and the first legislation protecting freedom of the press. Unfortunately, the king is most remembered for his Shrove Tuesday meal, a meal that would be his last. It's said that preparing to give up all his favorite delicacies, the king feasted on a giant buffet of lobster, caviar, kippers, sauerkraut, boiled meats, and turnips, while washing it down with bottles of champagne. He then finished off this meal with 14 semlas, a kind of pre-Dunkin' Donuts for dessert, and died the same day with digestive problems. Click on the video to the right for that dividend portfolio that puts cash in your pocket every single day. Dividend stocks that will pay your bills and then some. Don't forget to join the Let's Talk Money community by tapping that subscribe button and clicking the bell notification.